Hey everyone, this is Adam, and today I'm going to be showing you a tutorial on how to create advanced merge tags in our spreadsheet content, which is going to allow us to reference dynamic content between different rows in our spreadsheet, and then we're going to be able to import that content into our Figma designs automatically, and also do things like rename layers and update text and things like that. So bear with me if you're a little bit confused about what that means. I'll show you how to do this in just a moment. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go into our Figma file and we're going to go down to our actions item down here. So just click on that actions button. And then if you search for the word copydoc, so that's COPYDOC, and if you click on the copydoc item under the plugins tab, you can run the plugin by either clicking on the save icon down here, or you can click on the run button down here. But because I've already clicked on the save icon, I'm just going to go back to my Figma canvas. I'm just going to right click anywhere. I'm going to go down to plugins. Then I'm going to go all the way down to saved plugins and click on the copydoc item. And that's just going to run the plugin we saved a second ago. So the plugin has a bunch of different features that I'm not going to be covering in today's tutorial. Today, we're just going to be focusing on this sync content from spreadsheet feature down the bottom here. So this is going to allow us to take a spreadsheet, either from an Excel file or a Google Sheet, and we're going to be able to take all of this content and automatically repeat it into our Figma file without having to manually update all of our text layers or manually rename the layers. So to get started, what we're going to do is first set up our Figma file to match our spreadsheet. So I'm going to run through this in detail for you, just so you can see exactly what we're going to be doing. So the first thing we want to do is we basically want to name our frame based on what this content is here. So what I want to do is, instead of having this frame called login page, I basically want to change this to automatically get renamed by our spreadsheet data. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make sure that the name of my heading column up here basically matches up with the name I want to rename in Figma. So in this case, I'm going to rename this login page frame, and I'm just going to call it hash frame. So I've got a little hash symbol there and frame. So that's matching up with the header over here. And then what I want to do is I also want to rename or update some of this text content as well. So for example, I can basically jump in here, and if I rename this text layer to match this heading over here, which is hash first name, if I rename that layer, this is automatically going to swap out that content as well when we sync it up in a moment. And then finally, what we can also do now, which I'll be covering in this tutorial, is we can use this item over here. So in this case, I've called this column headline, and I'm just going to copy that layer name, and I'm going to go down to this text layer over here, and I'm going to rename that one headline. So we've got this one called headline, and then we've also got a text layer down here, which I'm going to show you one last use case. So you notice I'm kind of covering a few use cases that we're going to run through more in more detail in a moment. But in this one, I'm going to do a special little tag here, and I'm going to call this one first name. And you'll notice I've used the syntax that we've also used in our spreadsheet over here. So to explain what that does, it's basically a placeholder or a merge tag, which when we use this special syntax of a hash and then a curly bracket and then the name and then another curly bracket closing it, that's basically going to always reference a column name. So you can see we've got frame, first name, last name, and headline. So I'll show you what this looks like now, but it's basically going to automatically swap out the first name and last name with the values from the same row. So if I go to my Figma file and click on the sync content button down here, so I'm just going to go ahead and click on that now. So now that we've set up our file the way that we want, and I'm just going to go ahead and save that, I'll just remove this for now so we can run through that in a moment. So once you've saved your Excel file, or if you've got a Google Sheet, you can paste that in as well. So I'm just going to drag and drop my Excel file from my desktop over into this little drop zone area down here. And you can see that's basically loading up a little bit of a preview. So it's showing us exactly what the content of our Excel file is in the plugin here. And what we can do is, I'll just show you a really quick example first with just one layer. So I'm just going to click on this frame layer. And again, you'll notice that all the layers have been updated in the various layers to what we want. And if you just pay attention to what's going to change over here, once I click on the Sync Rows with Layers button, you'll notice that the content is updated. So a few things have happened here. I'll just walk through what's actually happened when we click that button. So you'll notice that the frame, which we previously had named hash frame, has been replaced with the first row of content. And in this case, because we use these special variable merge tags, it's automatically grabbing the first name and last name values from the same row and inserting those dynamically into those little merge tag placeholders. So in this case, you can see that the frame has been updated with frame Adam alias. So instead of frame hash first name hash last name with the brackets, those brackets are being swapped out with the real content from the same layer. And likewise with the headline. So you'll remember that we named this layer over here hash headline, which has still got the name there. And you can see it's swapped out the content dynamically. And again, it's used those variables from the same layer or from the same row and swap those into the content here. So that's automatically getting swapped out too. And then you'll also remember that we used a special bit of placeholder content here as well, exactly like we did in our spreadsheet. So along with using these in your spreadsheet, you can also use them in your Figma content as well. So that when you update the content, so you'll remember that we had it set to this. So we had it as hash, then the curly bracket, first name, and then close. So what that's done is it's basically checked for any layers in your frame with that little variable, and then it's swapped out that content with the content here. So if I just undo my manual update there, you'll see that when I undo that, it's automatically gone ahead and swapped in that value, again, taken from the first name there. So the other cool thing that we can do, if we just undo those changes, just to go back to what we had a second ago, so you'll notice I've just reverted it back to the placeholder content. If we wanted to automatically take this frame and loop it based on the number of rows that are in the spreadsheet, we can optionally do that as well. So if you click on the auto repeat toggle here, and you'll notice the button has changed to say sync and repeat selected layer. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that button now that we've enabled the toggle. And if I go ahead and click on that, you'll notice that it's basically gone ahead and looped that original frame. So it's kept the original frame over here, and it's created a new frame with a bunch of different copies of the frame. And you'll notice that all of the rows have been repeated and had their content swapped out dynamically. So in this case, we've just got 4 rows. So it's duplicated that frame 4 different times, and it has swapped out the content for each of those rows automatically. So that's pretty cool. The other thing that we can do, just to show you another more advanced use case, is if I just delete this layer here and go back to my spreadsheet. So the other thing that we can do is we can actually enhance this even further by specifying exactly what number row we want the content to be pulled in from dynamically. So as a quick example, in this case, if I want the Albert row, so I've got the first name of Albert, and if I don't want it to automatically use the last name from the same row, what I can do is I can add a special syntax, which is the dot symbol and then the row number of the spreadsheet. So in this case, it's going to reference row number 2, which is going to use the last name alias. And if I add that to my field over here as well, so I'm just going to do again .2, and then I'll do the same thing for my first name. So I'm basically going to use a different field for this one. So let's say I want to swap out Adam for Michael. What I can do is I can add .3 to my first name up here and do the same thing here. And if I go ahead and save that, we should now see what that looks like when we re-import the spreadsheet. So I'm just going to drag and drop the Excel file that we just updated back into the plugin. And you can see here in our preview, we've got the first name with the .3 and the last name with the .2 for rows 1 and 3. And I'm just going to go ahead and re-click on that frame again. And with the auto repeat still selected, I'm just going to re-click on the sync and repeat selected layer button. And you'll notice when I check out the updates, so if we zoom in here, we can basically see that the changes have worked as expected. So just to run through what we just did, we changed the first name placeholder merge tag in the first row here, which was previously set to Adam. We wanted to override that in the dynamic content here to instead point to row 3, which is Michael. So as you can see here, it's gone ahead and done that correctly. It's swapped out Adam for Michael, and it's done that in the layer name as well, because we used that for the layer naming syntax. So you can see it's called Michael alias. So it's basically swapped out the first name and it's left the last name as the current row. Similar with this frame down here. So we specified that the last name should change. So instead of Wu, it should be changed out to alias, because we used row 2, and you can see row 2 has a last name of alias. So it's basically swapped out that content as we'd expect, and it's done the same thing for the frame name as well. So this is a really handy way of specifying overrides. If you, for some reason, want to pull in content from a certain other layer, you can definitely do that just by adding this little dot syntax, and that will work as expected. So yeah, that's basically the rough formula. I just wanted to show you how you can leverage these interpolated or mix-ins to your layers, or in your rows and in your Figma layers as well, to make these a little bit more dynamic. And if you need to reuse data from some of your columns, you can now basically mix and match those into your content and have that dynamically update from the column data in the same row, or as we just had a look at, in the rows that you're overriding. So yeah, I hope that's useful if you're looking for more advanced usage of the CopyDoc sync feature when you're syncing content from a spreadsheet into your Figma layers. Hopefully this adds just another layer of extra flexibility with importing dynamic content in a repeatable basis. This is going to make it a lot easier to structure dynamic content in your spreadsheets, and I think you'll be able to put together a few really interesting concepts using this kind of mix-in or merge tag placeholder structure. So yeah, that's basically it. I'll leave it there for today, and please feel free to try this out in your own workflows, and hopefully it helps you out. But thank you as always for watching, and we'll be back with more Figma tutorials like this one very soon.